Well, hello and welcome everybody to this week's episode of We the Nerdies, Nerdflix and Chill. I'm Gary Theroux. Over there is Sean Capri. I'm happy to be back. What's going on, everybody?
I feel like a fat guy with his candy just back in after a diet. I'm just so happy. I'm like, this is comfort now.
Oh,
I'm
you've
back.
given up again now? You can settle back in?
I don't
You can
know
stop
if
working?
is it like I've fallen off the wagon or I'm back on the wagon with you.
I think that's a general negative. I don't know how that works, though.
I can't quit you, Gary.
Yeah, well, you should never. We should do this forever until we die.
Let's touch
And then
beards.
Thane can come back. Oh, yeah? You want some of that?
No, later we'll give Thane a going away present forever. I'm just kidding. Thank you, Thane, for covering for Gary. Without Thane, we probably would have had somebody else.
Wow. Such a loving send-off. I would like to say I listened to the show whilst I was Europing, and I think Thane did a fantastic job. You guys were great together.
Aw.
I was jealous. I missed it. I wanted my turf back. I wanted my man back.
That's me.
And I wish I could have gotten a chance to give my 2 cents on some of those things. We can't relitigate it all, but your incredible level of wrongness about all things Avatar pissed me off. I was screaming
Me?
into my phone. Yes.
Me?
And
Wait.
the way you guys mistreated the classic that is Face Off bothered me to no end. I wanted to see Sully. I
Did you
haven't
watch
yet,
Face Off, though?
I have watched it every year since the year it came out. I love that movie. I have not rewatched it.
Don't exaggerate. When was the last time you saw it?
Last year sometime. I swear to God, like once a year, like clockwork.
It's not that good. I'm sorry.
No, but none of you gave it. I understand it's not genuinely good, but you guys couldn't give it any of that, like, so good it's bad, and it puts a smile on my face, like, I have love and affection for this horrible thing, because they were nuts enough to do it. The filmmakers had to know they were creating garbage, and making it entertaining was, I think, like, a giant John Woo win. Release some dubs for it.
This is what we need you back on the show for. I had stomach problems, and Thane couldn't pull me out of it.
Well, I was jealous of all that. I was jealous that I didn't
What
get to go
Avatar?
see
What's
Sully.
so good about Avatar? Thane couldn't convince me that Avatar was good. I gave him ample opportunity.
Avatar is an excellent movie visually and in terms of all that technology and the stuff that you guys discussed. And on all the things that you were saying about why it's so horrible, don't make it awful. They make it fine. And I just didn't understand your vitriol. It wasn't that you don't love the movie, because
excited.
yes, it's been done before. The reason they keep doing those stories, though, is because they're great stories. So if you hated this, then did you also hate Pocahontas and Fern Gully and Dances with Wolves? Like, Dances with Wolves was nominated for Best Picture because this is a great story. So we can't do anything based on iconic themes or anything like that? You know what I'm saying? Anyways,
I get you.
We have a show to do.
All right.
We cannot relitigate all of this. We will relitigate
I wanted
Avatar
to, though. I'm glad.
in our own
I'm
time.
glad this is no. We didn't plan this. This just happens.
Yes.
Our conversations are orgasmic or organic. I'm not sure which.
Both.
Oh, well, the feeling is mutual, buddy.
I'm going to slide right off my chair.
Pleasure.
Pleasure. Ooh. Yeah. And then the other thing is you guys went and saw a Fassbender movie and didn't give nearly enough Fassbender love. Fassbender, I didn't even see the movie, and I was like, you guys didn't S enough of his D in this, because I haven't even seen it, and I'm sure he was amazing in it and riveting, and you were glued to the screen every time you were looking at him. I had to watch the really, really shitty X-Men movie, Apocalypse, on a plane again to confirm how bad it was, and I was just like, oh, Fassbender.
Oh, that's
And then
what-
the rest of it was hot garbage.
It's like a weird connection because that's the movie that we watched when I was out of country.
Oh, yes.
That's
Well,
neat. No.
I had an opportunity to watch, I believe, 11 plane movies
Oh my
whilst I was
gosh.
flying. So, I stayed in touch with my movie roots while I was there. That was for sure. So.
Oh, that's good. They can't totally take all the culture out of you while you're in Europe. It's
Yeah,
kinda nice.
absolutely.
Yeah. We all. Yeah. I won't go there.
So
She's about to bash an entire continent, but I'll just back off that. Just like, just
why don't we know?
Away.
So, like I said, I'm super happy to be back.
Woo.
Thanks again to Thane for covering. It really was great to listen to you guys. And like I said, I couldn't wait to get back in this chair and get back on it. But we have a show to do. And with that said, step number one is always trailer talk. We went and saw a new movie this week.
In the box.
Yeah, step one is cutting a hole in the box. Step two is trailer talk. We went and saw a new movie this week. We went and saw the reboot. Not a remake, not a sequel. Kind of a sequel.
Kind of a sequel.
Kind of rebootish. Blair Witch. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about this week's 6 Degrees of Chill movie, 12 Monkeys, a little bit later. But now the new trailers that we saw when we went and saw Blair Witch are as follows. We started with Ouija, which makes no sense. It's spelled with an A on the end. Ouija, Origin of Evil. We saw a horror movie, so we get horror trailers. And I'm curious what you thought of the Ouija trailer, Sean.
Terrifying. I actually forgot. You ever do that thing? I think most people do this, where you get all the car commercials, you get the Coca-Cola commercials that make you well up, and then you get into the trailers, and you're like, what the hell am I seeing today again? Like, I couldn't remember what I was there for. Especially now that we're doing this every week. Like, we've been in a theater every single week for going on. This is 22 weeks in a row. It's pretty unreal. So I forgot that we're going to see like a full-on horror movie. So then we just get like barraged with these trailers. And I'm like, I'm kind of scared before this movie even starts. The movie was Ouija, I think is how you say it. Ouija, Origin of Evil, coming out October 21st. And I don't like Ouija boards. I'll just say that. I don't think that you should play with them. I think that it's just stupid. I don't know why you would tempt fate like that. And this it has a little girl that describes being strangled and all the different levels that you feel. Like you get the cold and the taste in your mouth, and then you feel burning, and then you just get cold or whatever.
A long sequence to include in a what is probably, I think, a 2-minute trailer. They've got the general, like, this is the story you're going to watch. They set up that the mother and this family claims to be able to communicate with spirits, but it's all fake. They're going to do the whole you're a con artist step thing, and then even she's not going to believe it's real when it starts happening for real. And sort of they set up this kind of by-the-numbers horror story, like, okay, you're going to go see it, and hopefully it's creepy, is I guess the best you can hope for if you're a fan of horror. But then they stop the trailer and they do that entire sequence with the affected the little girl who opened the Ouija portal and is maybe possessed by a Ouija spirit of some kind.
It went right into her mouth, just totally went past her tonsils, rang the dinger on the back of her throat, and just like, honey, I'm home. And she's just gonna fuck things up for everybody.
And yeah, they stop the trailer and they just play that whole sequence of her describing the feeling of suffocating for like 25 seconds of a 2-minute trailer. Like, it was heavy-handed, and I don't know if that's indicative of them busting their nut. Like, this is the creepiest thing we're gonna do throughout this whole movie or what. But I was not sold on this movie's ability to be good at being watched.
Genuinely,
you know what I mean?
Scary, like maybe a little too easy, good at being watched.
Yeah, I don't think this movie's going to be very good at being watched. So if we're diving back into our little Rotten Tomatoes game of guessing the Rotten Tomatoes scores of movies we've seen the trailer for and then checking out later how close we were, I am willing to jump out here first and make a guess because, like I say, I don't think this is going to be very good. I have a feeling that based on people's pre-existing relationships with Ouija the game, they're going to give it a chance. Like, oh, I remember doing that shit and it creeped me out as a kid. Maybe this will be creepy. They'll find a way to say something decent about it, but they'll be stretching maybe to get it over 20%. I'll say 24.
Oh,
24%.
I cannot disagree. I don't think I actually I want to ask you something before I throw down my score. Do you think that it's cheating because I haven't done this yet because I felt it was cheating because I believe this is a sequel. Is it cheating to go check out for sequels and things of that nature?
Absolutely cheating.
Okay.
You're an
Then I will
honorable man
continue
for not
to.
doing that.
Yep, I am an honorable with a U.
Yes, because it's Canada.
Canada,
So.
Canterable honor. So, God, this is. I don't know if it's going to be that low, though. And I'm going to go 35. I'm going to go 35. I also think that it's not going to be very good. But we've talked about this 100 times before with the whole glass ceiling for a lot of horror movies.
Yeah, and that's what I don't understand is, like, I don't know what would be considered a good horror movie in the last 15 years. Like, I have a pre-existing bias against horror movies. I hate them. I think they're terrible. And what would break the genre and really stand out as something great, I would assume had to be something that's paradigm shifting, new, exciting, sort of moves the goalposts for itself. And so whether I really liked Rob Zombie's Halloween, as I've said before, or even the original Blair Witch was something different, right? We were changing the game. I wonder what the ceiling is for those, but we will find out sometime later. We'll go do some Rotten Tomato research, but not now because it would influence our choice. So 35% for you, 24% for me. We'll see how that shakes out in the future. So we saw one more trailer, and it was not that we haven't discussed before, and it was not in the horror genre. It was the long-awaited by some Bad Santa 2. Billy Bob Thornton is back. The little dude for me, myself, and Irene is back with him. I do not know what that little guy's name is.
Blackburn Troyer.
Blackburn Troyer is also back. I didn't remember that Bad Santa had enough goodwill to warrant a sequel.
Oh,
but
I wish they never made this movie. It was so good on its own, just as that one movie, like Grandma's Boy, just like walk away from it. It's great. We'll remember it as being amazing. I don't want this movie. I think this takes the trashiness of Bad Santa to a whole new level. Like, he's back and he's badder than ever and he's drunker than ever and he's gonna puke more. He's gonna twice the puke and twice the mustard stains. I don't want this movie.
Yeah, and I don't know that it was that feeling. I don't have strong memories of the first or of loving the first. I thought it was a good movie, but
I think I saw it on a ski trip on a bus one time. I think that's
there you go.
So you're like drinking with everybody and having a good time.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
perfect setting for that kind of movie.
And I also don't have any hostility towards it. Like, for me, it just came and went as a movie that I probably enjoyed and moved on from.
Mm-hmm.
But in this trailer, I don't know what to feel. It didn't exactly have the comedy chops of some other trailers that we've seen recently. Like, I remember last episode I did before we left, we saw the trailer for Office Christmas Party.
Oh, yeah, no, it's great.
And, like, it had jokes in it, at least. And this really didn't have those. So it was just trading on the goodwill of its predecessor.
This
I
looked
would
like
really
the trailer was made and the script was written right after the movie originally came out, and they've just been sitting on it ever since. And then somebody's like cleaning out their office because they got fired, and they're like, "Hey, you dropped this," and he throws it on some idiot's desk. And he's like, "Hey, this is pretty good." And that's how this movie is made. Looks terrible.
Yeah. So this, for me, this is an example of exactly what you just said. I'd really love to go check out the RT scores for the original Bad Santa to get some type of clue here as to what I should go for. But I'm going to go with not a great premise in the first place. Reviewers tend to think that a lot of sequels are tired and dated and not that great. So I think it'll struggle, but I think if they're making a sequel, it had some goodwill. So it'll find a way to get itself up into 40%.
I'm a little lower than you. I'm actually hoping this movie doesn't do well. I don't often wish ill will.
Actively root against people who make films.
Yeah, 30% for me. I don't think this is a necessary movie. It looks awful. I am not... maybe I need a Red Band trailer. Maybe that's the difference on a movie like this. But from what I saw, what do we know?
Or a trailer with some jokes for a comedy.
That would be a plus.
Let's get nuts.
Yeah.
So we'll see how those pay off in the future. Those are the new trailers we saw this week. So that takes us right into our feaster presentation, as it were, on old VHS tapes. Yeah, exactly. We saw, again, as we've mentioned, the reboot or sequel for Blair Witch, directed by Adam Wingard, written by Simon Barrett, starring one reasonably cute brunette chick and three douchebees that you don't really care about. And
Peter!
It came out a week ago, and it's got Rotten Tomato score of 36% from critics and 40% from fans, which, okay, like, I didn't know as I was watching it if whilst I was watching my the time on my phone and hoping it was going to be over soon, and yawning and rolling my eyes. If it's like, is this just because it's me and I don't like horror movies, or are other people enjoying this based on those scores? Probably not so much. I will sort of let you start us off with your general thoughts. What did you think?
Okay, well, even before I do that, I wanted to discuss the history of the Blair Witch with you just a little bit, going back in time, 1999, to a time when Napster was fresh and new. We were downloading songs at a blazing 4.5 kilobytes per second, and rumors were spreading around the internet of this Blair Witch project. This, don't know if this is real. Maybe this is a homemade video that somehow made its way onto theater screens. Like, the idea of this movie actually being made and then making its way into theaters is as ridiculous as the actual premise of the movie itself, which is actually kind of meta and kind of cool. And you almost wanted to buy into the fact that this wasn't a film. And so the whole shaky thing that was innovative, I guess, at the time, the whole found footage idea, very strange. And I really was disappointed by the first Blair Witch. There was so much hype. I got into the movie theater, and I just remember, spoilers, by the way, for the very first one. It came out in 1999, so just chill. They end the movie with a guy staring in the corner, and that gave everybody chills. And I remember sitting in the theater going, like, I don't get it. And I wasn't even angry. I just was confused, because I feel like I missed something about the corner of the room.
So I think that the one thing that pops into my head is how long after the release did you wait to go? You know what I mean? Because if you would have had it built up as this amazing thing for 3 weeks before you finally got a chance to get yourself in there, I could see exactly how you felt that way. For myself, as a guy who hates horror movies, I remember the weekend it came out, people had gone, there was these rumors that it might be real, it can't be real.
I heard people had heart attacks in the theater.
Oh yeah, that was on the news. People are getting so scared they're fainting, and they're getting taken out in ambulances and stuff like that. And I remember a couple friends of mine had gone, and they said they saw it, and I was just like, oh, so is it as good as people say? And this for me it's my earliest memory of, you'd ask somebody what they thought of a movie, and they were just like, nope, I can't go see it. I can't say anything. I can't say a word, right?
Oh, like, good.
I've done that.
I see.
Yeah, like they don't want to tell me whether it's good or bad or scary or not, or if it's real or it's not. I've done that with other movies in the past, right? Where since then I've seen things. It's like, you know what? I don't want my opinion to taint your opinion. It's something that needs to be seen for every individual person.
That'd be the worst podcast ever, by the way. Okay, so we're gonna talk about Blair Witch. What do you think? Nope, can't tell you. Nope, just go see it, make up your own mind.
Yeah, exactly. But the original Blair Witch was one of those for me. And like I say, for myself, I remember thinking the movie was, like most horror movies, pretty boring, pretty tedious for me, but ultimately interesting in that I had never seen anything like it before, and less painful to sit through than most horror movies before or since, really.
For me, a horror movie is a lot about the ending and the payoff and everything. So for the first Blair Witch, I shouldn't say that I was completely disappointed, because I was along for the ride until the ending, and I just didn't understand why the staring in the corner was so terrifying. Later, as I got older, I guess I just get weak in my old age. Picturing him sitting in the corner, like staring like that, does scare me. And it gives me kind of chills thinking about it now. But at the time, I remember just going like, I wasn't into it. Time went on. I got a little bit more creeped out by the ending, and I watched it a few years ago, and just more bored about the camping. And I now fast forward to now, we're not spoiling anymore. I bought into this Blair Witch project, or this 2016 Blair Witch. I was in, and I was actually trying to fight it, because the psychological stuff, you either, if it hits you, it pulls you in, but if it misses you, you're sitting there, similar to a lot of people say about Paranormal Activity. They'll sit there, they'll say that it's a very boring movie, nothing happens. But if you buy into like those suspenseful scenes, or like what's happening, and if you let your imagination start to run wild, like that's really where I started to get a little, like I was actually like curling up in a ball in my seat for some parts of 2016's Blair Witch.
I got you.
And so, man, I'm thinking about this. I got scared. So I think that's like one measure of like, is this a good movie or not? I think overall, probably not a good movie. Did it scare me? Have I been thinking about it ever since I saw it 2 nights ago? Absolutely. So,
Well, like you
I mean,
say,
there's lots to
to a
unpack
certain
here.
extent, then that's a good thing, right? So just to back up and bring everybody along with us, like you say, this is the non-spoilerish review section for a new
Woo!
movie like Blair Witch, and we'll just run you through a quick description of what we're talking about here. If you haven't gone to see it yet, or if you're thinking about going to see it,
See it.
the premise here is that we're going to follow a character named James, who is the brother of the original victim in
Snot-nosed
the
girl.
Blair Witch Project. Snot-nosed girl, yes. Snot-nosed girl's little brother is going to venture with some friends into the Black Hills Forest, the same one she was lost in, to try and find some clues, or in his mind, maybe even find his sister.
Yeah.
Because she was obviously never found. So what the synopsis won't tell you is that they have modernized the story, right? These kids are going to go camping, but they're going to take handy cams with them, and they're going to take a drone camera with them, and they're going to take microphones and GPS and all this stuff, and they're prepared for this, right? And they're going to document the whole thing with a. I didn't understand the character setup, but like it's 4 friends, and one of them is doing a documentary, but she is a friend. It's not just a documentarian following the friends, but she's separate from the group, but she's part of the group.
And she thinks he's a little cute.
Maybe she thinks he's cute, yeah, but this isn't that kind of movie, so what's the point of having that character develop in there? We won't get into that anyways. So, in any case, these 4 venture out into the woods, and then you get, from that point forward, a Blair Witch story, which either you're kind of into or you're not. So I like hearing you say it caught you at the beginning, right? Because if you're in, I'm sure, darkness in the forest on its own is pretty creepy.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's an unsettling venue or setting for these characters. So if you feel that tension, if you're sitting there with those nerves, I imagine that would be pretty successful in this movie, since most of it takes place in the woods after sundown. And I would hope that for the people who are into this genre of movies, and someone who paid their money to go see this movie, would get that feeling of tension and creepiness and allow themselves to sort of sink in and be taken in by it. Almost in the way that if you enjoy these movies, or you like this genre, or you enjoy being scared, you would go into a haunted house, right?
Yeah.
Halloween time, there'd be a big haunted house, and you know what you're going in there for. You're hoping you get spooked. You're hoping something surprises you. You're hoping you're walking through there on edge, just with your shoulders up, like cringing.
I was.
You're pre-cringed, right? And like that's, I think, all you can really hope for. Like you said, you were scared. I wasn't, but
I was resisting at the beginning. They took a long time to talk about all the modern technology. They weren't roaming around the woods with these DV tape cameras. They were going around with, like you talked about, like the little the earpiece headphone, the cameras that go in your earpiece, and all these other things. Like they spent a long time about the technology of how they're going into it. And a lot of the setup, I was kind of like, this is pretty. I didn't really like the first part of it. There was a lot of setup, so I really thought that was pushing me away. And then once they got into the woods, it's interesting because it's not the best picture quality. So it's weird for me to say you should see this in the theater for me because of the sound editing. It's about being lost in the forest and hearing something off in the distance while you're hiding in your tent, and then that lets your imagination run wild. You go like, well, was that a bear, or did something just fall, or was that the Blair Witch and we're all about to die? So some parts, like as long as the movie sticks on that and it introduces some new ways to scare you that I didn't really buy into, it gets a little ridiculous. There's one part, there's an injury that happens that I didn't like at all to one of the characters. I feel like that totally could have been taken out, and I felt like it really took away from the central kind of theme. It got a little silly, but otherwise I was with this movie basically when things got dark, and it got to me. And I saw it with a friend of ours, Sean Fedunik, and he's like, that didn't scare me. And then he messages me the next day like, I think that movie got to me. So like, I don't know, like it was kind of like a delayed, it messes with your mind. So it's easy to hate on this movie. Like we can point out a lot of the flaws. Like the characters are archetyped. They're all 2-dimensional. There's not really any character development here at all. If any, will they, won't they is totally wasted. The shaky cam is obviously a thing that we can point out is totally crappy. Like, it's not enjoyable to watch. I don't think that anybody's looking at this going, I'm having a great time watching these people shake their heads around and the camera's no good. But I thought it was a fairly interesting improvement on, or just like a next movie from the last Blair Witch. Was it phenomenal? Probably. I don't think so, but I enjoyed it more than I thought I would, actually.
Well,
But it has to hit you. It has to snag you.
Right? It's like you're signing a contract. You're making a deal with the filmmaker. I'm going to give you, in this case, 95 minutes of my time, and you are going to give me, I would hope, a few things to latch onto to walk out of the theater and go, oh my God, remember that? Yeah,
I'm getting that right now. Oh God.
And
you have to like that too. Like I kind of enjoy that. Like it. So there were parts. I'm rambling now, but at this point, it doesn't do what a lot of horror movies do wrong, where it starts to show you too much. Like, it always gives you just a little glimpse, and you're like, did I just see that, or did I or is my mind playing tricks on me? And so there are some parts where I was so frightened because I'm such a wuss at these stupid movies. I was kind of like looking in the corner of the screen because I didn't want to like full on close my eyes or like cover them with my hands. So I'm looking off in the corner. I'm like, no, I can't miss. Something is about to happen. I can't miss it. I just have to watch. And I just kind of had to like force myself back up to the middle of the screen. And then sure enough, they get me. So it was those good scares that I really liked, but there were some cheap scares as well. Like the cheap jump scares where it's really nothing. I just like a few too many of those.
Oh yeah.
So a mix. I'm kind of in the middle, if you can't tell.
So what is that up to on a rating out of 5 for you?
I think for me it's a 3 out of 5. Like it's not phenomenal, but I'm nowhere near these Rotten Tomato scores. I thought it was good, and I actually recommend it to you if you like the first one. If the first one got you, I think this is a natural fit for anybody like that. But it's not a universal like everybody should see this movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Batman v Superman.
Like Batman vs. Superman. Wow, okay. Well, for me, it's a 0.5.
Oh, God!
I understand why this movie exists. Even if you like horror movies, make better choices. Go see something different. Not a fan whatsoever. Would have been much happier coming back overseas and going to see Bridget Jones's Baby than having to sit through this hot and toddy garbage.
You're just grumpy because it was late.
Because it was late? It was fine. I saw it early in the day. I just thanked God that my theater was empty and I didn't have to listen to like every time I go to horror movies, girls get spooked and make these sounds, and it's just a lot of they scare and then they giggle, and then they scare and then they giggle. And I spend most of my time laughing at people laughing at themselves. It's hilarious.
I thought you were saying that somebody's watching Zootopia on their phone. Like, it sounded like you're making monkey sounds.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was one guy who let out an audible, like a "oh" at one point.
Damn, girl.
Don't go upstairs.
Yeah, exactly. He's right behind me, isn't he? Anyways, we have to keep some forward motion here. Also, another thing while I was listening to you guys while I was overseas, a bunch of back talk and heat, a bunch of smack talked about running over 60 minutes. And I don't know if we got any responses to your guys' shorter, tighter version of this, as opposed to my rambling, full of expository explanations version. But yeah, we're going long here, buddy.
Well, glad to see my passive-aggressive way of passing that along.
Message heard, duly noted, and also fucking ignored. Yeah, exactly. Like Brad Pitt, I'm throwing my middle fingers at you.
Why would you bring up Brad Pitt there, Gary?
Well, it's funny you say it, because this week's 6 Degrees of Chill movie was 12 Monkeys, starring one Bradley Q. Pitt, now San's wife, and
rest in peace.
Yeah,
marriage.
Okay. Rest in peace. Yeah, marriage. Yeah, Brangelina, rest in peace. And Bruce Willis and Madeline Stowe and Christopher Plummer and others. Rotten Tomatoes score on this guy, 88 and 88. Fits well into the Rotten Tomatoes rule of if it gets over 80 in both categories. See it, even if you don't have any interest in it. It's not your type of movie, because it should be interesting at least. For those of you who somehow are new to this or haven't followed along with 6 Degrees of Chill in the past, we watch an old movie, a DVD, a Netflix, a streaming. You can demand it if you want to demand it. But you get yourself a copy of an older movie that we talked about, and then we follow that up with a connection through an actor or director, or sometimes through punctuation. I think we connected through slashes at one point from Face Off to Frost Nixon, someone suggested.
Perfect
Connect
suggestion.
it one way or another to the next movie, and we'll keep doing this every week. And we have a spoiler-filled discussion of the beginning, the middle, and the end, and sometimes we do it in a linear fashion, and sometimes we jump around because we spark memories in each other of like, I wanted to talk about this, and you can ooh and ah and pre-cringe at whatever you want. So for 12 Monkeys, we like to start off, as opposed to our non-spoiler reviews, we start off the 6DOC review section with our thoughts in number form, just so you know where we're coming from as we discuss this thing. What was your rating for 12 Monkeys, Sean?
I remember liking this movie a lot. I remember thinking it was very clever, very strange, but I didn't enjoy my time with it. I watched it just before the show. I'm a 2.5 out of 5. Right down, like I'm a fence sitter on this one. 2.5 out of 5. I kind of wish that I could go back in time somehow to watch, although that is very fitting. I wish I could go back and watch it when it came out, because I do remember liking this and enjoying it quite a bit more, but I don't think that it holds up. I think this is just a matter of it being a little old and over the top, kind of maybe a little muddy in some parts. We get a lot in this movie. There's a time travel, there's a Stockholm Syndrome story, there's a lot kind of happening. There's a lot of insane people. We're not sure if what's real. There's a reality kind of challenge here. So it gets in its own way quite often. And I wish that a few elements were, and we'll get into this, I wish a couple of elements were taken out just to simplify just a little bit. But very creative, and like, I like that it's different. But yeah, and I'll get into one of the performances that I don't think was very strong. But I'm curious for you. I'll throw it back to you.
Well, every once in a while, you and I disagree quite a bit and are completely different ends of a spectrum on a movie. But in this case, bang on the same.
Yeah.
2.5 out of 5.
Yeah.
I don't really have any hostility for it.
Yep, me neither.
It wasn't terrible, but not a lot to hold on to here is terrific. None of the performances really jumped off the screen to me. As I'm watching it, I thought...
What do you mean, Gary? There was one that was clearly really interesting. Look at me, I'm biting my finger.
Well, Brad Pitt's nutty fever dream version of Tyler Durden aside, I watched this and I thought exactly what you thought without putting it so eloquently. It did age poorly. It's sort of like something that's sort of yellowing and rounding at the corners, and it's just not as fresh as it used to be.
Yeah.
And I had positive memories of this movie, and like I say, it still wasn't awful, but the only thing that jumped off the screen at me as I was watching it was, this kind of looks like a Terry Gilliam movie. Like the when they're in crazy places, the screen is never quite on axis. Top being the top of the screen, bottom being the right. It's got to be tilted. It's got to be swooning. It's got to be swiveling. It's got to be. He's expressing through his shot choice the frantic and feverish nature of the characters you're following, and I just thought, this looks like a Terry Gilliam movie. I looked it up on IMDb as I was watching the movie. I was like, hey, it's Terry Gilliam.
Yeah, weird.
Who would have guessed, right? So I thought that part of it was good. I thought it was reasonably well shot. Some of the art direction choices we can get into as we go through sort of the scenes, but in terms of how they describe or how he chooses to show the dystopian future that we see in so many movies was kind of weird and cartoonish and very much
I was thinking like a comic kind of
like
thing,
a comic book, or for me kind of looked like a high school stage production, right? Like everything was two-dimensional and cardboard. Like, oh, let's throw up a room, and if we're gonna make a room on a high school stage production, you'd erect those 3 walls, right? And you'd cover them with things, and there would be no depth to the image. You never go down a hallway or explore a world or look at the three-dimensional version of the setting, right? Every time he was in his present, or what we would call the future, he was in a confined space with no depth to it whatsoever. And that was my overriding thought, is that there's other places you could have gone with this that would have been much more interesting than following around Bruce Willis's character and his doctor as they form this weird Stockholmy affection for each other. So, if anyone's listening at this point, I guess, like, again, I'll just catch everybody up. If you haven't watched 12 Monkeys, or you're thinking about watching 12 Monkeys, we're talking about a story here of Bruce Willis's character coming from the future to the past to try and gain information on a plague that wiped out the world. And of course, the first time he comes back, everybody thinks he's a psychopath because he's drooling and just went through time travel and isn't making any sense. And then slowly, as the movie goes on, he's trying to convince specifically this one doctor played by Madeline Stowe, and really anybody who will listen about the plague that's going to befall the world. So to sort of jump into it, did you take any notes this week, Sean? Just about sort of like in order what we do? Because, I mean, I just watched a thing as well, and you got that opening with him exploring the surface world in his clear condom
That's exactly
suit.
what I wrote down, his body condom.
His body condom. And we get started in this way that's very engaging. I was in at that point.
Yeah, me too. I like right from the very first screen, it describes that in 1997, 5 billion people will die from a deadly virus. So I'm in. I love this sort of stuff. I always want to find out, like, well, what happened, and is there any way to prevent this stuff from happening? And the synopsis you gave, I actually kind of wish was it. I wish that was the movie, but there are probably 5 or 6 other layers on this, because we see this sort of like switching that happens where nobody believes Bruce Willis, and then it becomes everybody believes him except for him. Like, he makes a switch as well. So I don't want to get too far ahead of us, but I was in at the very beginning as well. I was very interested in the fact that the way that the remaining humans survive was actually to abandon the surface, and they're well below like the sewers, and they've got just a weird sort of totalitarian, some sort of weird system that is keeping everybody safe, that they're all subscribing to. We never really get to know what Bruce Willis did. We know he has like a violent history, but he's serving some sort of sentence here. And the way that they want to get, the way they get him to do things they want to further their agenda, this weird committee that they've got, is they volunteer these prisoners to go up to the surface and gather information. And before we know it, he's in time travel. And so he makes his trip up. He grabs a couple cockroaches, I think a spider as well, and then a bear almost stealth kills him. And then he runs away, manages not to tear his body condom, gets back, and they realize this committee, this weird kind of like this panel of scientists or whoever, these decision makers, they give him this opportunity to shave off time off of his sentence by going back in time and gathering information because he's a good observer. So there's a couple of like seeds planted here that I'm all in. I like this idea of going back and just gathering information. You learn pretty quickly that the past is the past. There's no changing that. So we kind of have those rules of the time travel built in. But I think that there's things flipped here. You actually see more of the process of the time travel the second time he travels in time, rather than they basically tell him about this opportunity, and before you know it, he's
gone. Yeah, and it's just it's pretty stilted and herky jerky. It's
herky jerky.
You're interested, but I don't know if I want to know more, or I want to see him go through the process of being convinced a little more. I mean, I'm trying to think of other movies where I've seen that sort of high council of pale faces, like when they just, their job is just sit there and be creepy and authoritative. But it all seems, you said kind of like a comic book, right? And I think almost like a cartoon, right? Where you see people go present themselves to panels or juries or to elders or whatever it is, right? They're literally in an elevated place having dominion over you. And exploring that dynamic might have been better, but like you say, in the first instance where he time travels, they just fire him back. Like, you can get fewer years if you try some shit, and he's like, fewer years sounds good, and they're like, awesome, see you later. Like, he's gone, right? He's just, it's all at once he's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get introduced to Madeline Stowe's character back in 1990. He thinks he's going to 96.
Yeah.
But we don't get mission parameters. We don't get read into the mission, right?
Your only cue is that she is interrupting some sort of lecture with her beeper going off, and I hate people with their beepers always going off. You got to set that shit to vibrate.
How rude. Yes, exactly.
People
when you're sitting in a museum listening to a lecture on a single photo, you absolutely turn off your beeper.
Mm-hmm.
I did not learn this lesson. Little personal touch here. Had my phone on me with my ringer on whilst walking through the world's most depressing venue, a Holocaust museum in Germany, and my phone went off at high volume, and I was literally that character who's like, "Oh my god, so sorry!" As I walked, I ran and I whispered, and I went to turn my phone off and like, I felt it was the most embarrassing thing in the world.
Oh, Gary!
And turn off your beeper, people. It's a real life lesson.
Very disappointing, Gary. So we're back in 1990, which is another kind of flip. Works out in the end, but there's just a lot of confusion that we have to kind of like sift through as the audience to kind of catch up. As the psychologist or psychiatrist, I can't remember what she is. She's a head doctor. Gets pulled into an asylum, and that's where we find out that it is Bruce Willis, but it's not the Bruce Willis that we just saw a moment ago. He's gone through something, and he now drools like crazy. He's curled up into a ball. He has some sort of superhuman strength because he's put a couple of cops in the hospital. Never really explained, but I just
also
imagine...
not explained or explored. Yeah, how he's taking 5-on-1. He does it later on as well.
He has future strength. It's like dad strength.
Orderlies, yeah, there you go. The orderlies pin a drugged up Bruce Willis in a hallway, half a dozen to either side of him, and he fights his way out of that one too. Or no, he eventually gets strapped down, but then disappears because he can get apparently called back from this mission to 1990 at the whim of the Paleface Council.
Yeah, he doesn't have to go to any like designated spot to go. He doesn't have to go to like a time travel bus stop or anything. He can just be like whisked back.
Yeah, he doesn't have to pick up one of Neo's phones.
Exactly, I was just doing that. Yep. Not like this. He didn't get unplugged or anything. So they explore. Okay, so what happens next? They basically just put him straight into a mental institution.
Yeah, like he wakes up in custody. He's at a cop station. That's where Madeline Stowe's character, Dr. Riley, gets introduced. But then they immediately transport him to the psych ward, or the Arkham Asylum of 12 Monkeys. And it all seems like a mechanism to introduce us to off his meds Tyler Durden. Brad Pitt's nail-biting, waving his hands at you, wearing one loopy contact so his eyes don't balance. Freak character, right? And he's doing a fantastic job of acting insane to a point that it looks cool at the beginning, but by the end of the movie, you almost, I don't know if you felt the same way, you're kind of tired of it. Like,
big time.
We get it. You're nuts, right? Like, his acting is after a certain amount of time, like, it becomes a Family Guy joke that started out as funny and then gets really annoying but never really comes back like Family Guy does to being funny again.
And that's the thing for me that didn't age well. Like, I feel like that was new. We hadn't seen Brad Pitt really do kind of that weird thing before, or we really hadn't seen anybody do, or not too many people do, a really crazy role. And he kind of went full retard on this one. And you never go full retard.
Never go.
And he never comes back either. Like, he is let out of the asylum at some point between 1990 and 1996. And I have to assume that his dad, who was a big deal, maybe pulled some strings, and that's why he is out. But he never, like, he maintains that level of insanity, but functions at an extremely high level to what you think is going to end the world, but really he's up to just a stupid prank.
Yeah, and that character is just so weirdly handled over the course of the movie. So if you isolate just Brad Pitt's involvement in the movie, from here jumping ahead in the timeline and then to the end, and we'll get back to our sort of linear thinking here, but with Brad Pitt, he's in the asylum, he's clearly nuts, he's manic, he's semi-psychotic, but he's essentially just manic, like he's just dialed to 11. Mm-hmm. He seems to be making sense and coherent. He has a relationship with the orderlies, they know they can talk him down and stuff. So okay, so maybe he's just manic. He's got control of his faculties in the sense that he somehow miraculously helps Bruce Willis with his first attempt at escape before he has to disappear.
Escape.
He acquires a key for him and has a plan that he's going to cause a diversion.
He obsesses over just going against the man.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
he goes from there, and then like you say, you don't see him again for 6 years in the movie's timeline, and then he's got that horrible ponytail and his Harry Potter glasses on, and he's being semi-well behaved.
He's got his bad guy ponytail.
He's got his bad guy
villain
ponytail.
90s
How
villain.
you identify him as a villain?
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. In Terry Gilliam's world, and then he seems semi-well behaved, but then he's manic and sort of obsessive when he sees Bruce Willis again, and he says he doesn't recognize him, and you don't know if he genuinely doesn't recognize him and doesn't remember him or does. And then, of course, Bruce Willis says 12 Monkeys, and Brad Pitt then does recognize him, and they're on the same team. Like, it's wild. And then you get to the end of the movie, and he's clearly let himself go again. We're still in 1996, but he took off the Harry Potter glasses. He stopped shaving, so he's got a just absolutely dreamy 5 o'clock shadow.
Oh, yeah.
And he's wearing a beret of some kind. And
because he's a rebel.
Because he's a rebel.
The rebel beret.
There's just no explanation of his changes throughout the movie. And what I felt like, for me, at the end result was, what was the purpose of having him at all?
Exactly, and that's what I talked about like at the beginning, where we're saying like this movie has so many different layers, and I feel like if you just got rid of a couple of them, Brad Pitt actually being one of them, like the mystery of the army of the 12 Monkeys, I think is really intriguing. And I actually I haven't seen this movie in a number of years. I forgot what Brad Pitt's role was. I forgot that it was a prank. All he wanted to do was just let the animals loose. I kind of wish that they just didn't have, like, there's just a little too much crazy. Bruce Willis and Brad Pitt both being insane or going through whatever they're going through is just a little much, because Bruce Willis pulls the whole spectrum. He goes from, I am in complete control, they've chose me because I'm smart and because I gather information, to I don't know what is going on, and then convincing himself that he actually is mentally divergent and that he's creating separate realities. Like, all of that is a lot, and for him to have to bounce off of and even communicate or interact with another crazy person was just a little too much. The 12 Monkeys, the army of the 12 Monkeys could have existed on its own without a figurehead, without a crazy figurehead.
Because you could have still had that straw man, that diversion. Everyone thinks this is what everybody look over here. This is what we're fighting against, and you're going to have a twist ending. You could have still done that, and you just talked about it in the context of Blair Witch and horror movies. Less is more, right?
Yeah.
You've got the creepy symbol. You've got the red paint, right? You've got the iconography. Why don't you just show that? Not have Brad Pitt's character whatsoever, and then you can dive in to what Bruce Willis is going through, because as you said, he goes back and forth across the spectrum, right? And to me, that was another reason why this thing didn't age well and why the acting was a little shaky, because you never really get a handle on who Bruce Willis is, and you never connect with him, right? Because, like you said, he starts off,
which is rare.
Yeah.
For Bruce Willis, right? I always buy into it. Whatever he's doing, I'm in. But I just,
Yeah. You don't want Ben Affleck fucking your daughter, right? You need to get out of Nakatomi Towers. Whatever you're doing, Bruce Willis.
What?
Normally, I fully understand.
Oh, Armageddon, of course. Of course. How can
Yeah. Your favorite and my favorite
that.
movie.
I bet Ben Affleck would care for her.
Yeah, animal crackers and whatnot.
Of course.
So anyways, in this movie, my feelings were based on the fact that, okay, so yes, he thinks he's smart and they've chosen me. At the time that he gets selected, you think he's a little bit of a simpleton, but functional in that he remembers things and he does his job well, right?
Yep.
But not obviously an eloquent or educated person. He's a little mumbly, a little monosyllabic, right? Which is fine. Our hero can be like that, right? But then when he goes to 1990, is it just the effects of the time travel that made him... Obviously, that's what made him drooly. But then when he's trying to make himself understood, and trying to ask for the phone call and trying to explain his situation, it's almost like he starts to settle back in and become himself again. And then he gets sent back. Okay, so that would scramble you up again. Now you're back in the old world. And then he gets sent back to 1996. So is it just a stress on a brain that makes him completely back and forth and at different places on the spectrum, if you understand what I mean?
Yeah,
I guess
he evolves and then he devolves and evolves and devolves back and forth, but we don't really... the idea of time travel being stressful to the fact of it can kind of like warp your mind is introduced way too late. And to me, I feel like you either introduce it early or you don't do it at all. But they kind of like just tap you on the shoulder a little later and go, if you missed it, he's weird because of the time travel. And I felt like that was...
Okay, so you did get that feeling. Okay, because I was going to say, the more concise, I rambled for a bunch there to get this one image in my head 2/3 of the way to the movie. He just went to the party and confronted Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt told him, you can't do anything about this, I'm going forward. Beats him up, kicks him out of the party. He goes back, lets Dr. Riley out of the trunk, and the cops are coming for him.
Right.
And he's talking about how he wants to stay in this world, which is fine. We understand how they're coming together and they want to stay together. But then he's like literally talking about, I like the frogs, and he's jumping up and down and splashing in the water and waving his arms like someone on, we've used the word spectrum a lot, like someone on the spectrum. Like he's clearly being psychotic.
Yeah.
And he hasn't time traveled in a while. He's been settled in and made this plan.
I know, just up out of nowhere, he just kind of flips the switch and now he's crazy again.
Yeah.
Like, he has triggers which are weird, I guess, is really the only way to explain it. But you really have to think about that. Like, oh, he's realizing how wonderful it is, and that snaps him into this weird state of just being totally insane. And it's because he breathes the air, he sees the water, he like appreciates nature out of nowhere. So I don't know. I didn't like that either. And again, too much crazy and back and forth. Like, pick one.
Yeah, so I think we're talking about the same thing. It messes with your tether to the character. Like a lot of times you want to feel close to a main character like that and understand his plight and root for him and sort of be paired up with your hero as he goes on a journey. If you make him the center of the movie, you want to stay side by side. But you don't really stay side by side with Bruce Willis. It's like you've got him on one of those dog leashes that you can let out for a really long time, and you can click the button and bring him back if you need to. Like he drifts away for a while, and you're like, is this guy even the good guy? What's he doing? Why is he slamming the door? And why is he gonna stab a dude in a bathtub? And then he comes out with a bloody mouth. But what did you do with the dude in the bathtub? Like, it just is so much craziness going on, and I understand that's Terry Gilliam's way of doing things, and I understand having a visual style and even a directorial style that's supposed to keep the audience guessing and keep you uncomfortable. We talked about Blair Witch wanting to make you tense and then hold you in that place where you're constantly anticipating the next creepy thing, like you're just cringing. And maybe Terry Gilliam is just trying to keep you constantly with your brow furrowed, like, what the serious is going on here?
That was pretty much me throughout this movie. But the thing that kept me going was really just the entire setting. I thought it was super interesting, as much as I can bag on this movie. I like the overall arc of this movie and the idea. I like the time travel rules. I thought were kind of neat, but a lot of the execution is just weird. Like, what? I don't remember the teeth thing being a thing. Like, they kind of mentioned it later. They say this is how they find you, but wasn't that after he had actually pulled his teeth out? Like, that was the first we'd heard about. This is the tracking devices, the teeth that I just put. Like, you never. I don't know. I just feel like things were introduced in a weird order, which is also strange to say because the whole point of this movie is to go back and forth. But the overall theme, I really enjoyed. It's not a happy ending, by the way. Everybody dies. But do you want to talk about an airport in 1990? When did this movie come out? Pre 9/11, I'll tell you that much. Excuse me, sir.
No security.
I would like to see what you have in that iron briefcase. What are you taking on this plane? Oh, of course, sir. I will open it for you. Let me show you. These are glass containers, and I'm bringing biological samples with me to San Francisco and to Rio de Janeiro and to China and all these different places. Oh, okay. Well, biological samples, did you say? Was it biological samples? Okay. Here's the paperwork. Oh, sure. I will read these papers and I'll flip through them and flip like I'm not even like, what are these going to say? And the biological samples are in here, you say? Yes, yes. Well, they look empty. Oh, of course, to the naked eye, they look empty. So let me open this for you. Let me open this biological sample and just wave it in front of your face. Oh, Mr. Traveler, that won't be necessary. You don't have to. Oh, but I insist. And he waves this little test tube in front of his face, unleashing the virus, at least in this location. And I cringed. Like, was this did people buy this back when this movie came out, that you could walk into an airport and just unleash biological or open up biological samples for people? I can't even bring a bottle of water on an airplane.
Believe me, I know. I got
they probably made you shave your beard.
I got randomly selected multiple times on this trip, but no, I don't believe the airport would have been.
Theroux, we need to ask you what's under your beard.
So, I don't know if the airport was a problem so much for people at that time, but I think people may have been encouraged by the fact that this is a weird ending that doesn't pay off, right? It's not neatly wrapped up in the bow. For me, in hindsight, it's like, oh shit. So everything that he did in this entire movie was predetermined, based on the fact that young Bruce Willis saw it all happen.
Yep.
And everything that he did made no difference in that timeline.
Yep.
Based on what Jose just said to him at the end.
Yep.
Like, you almost saved it, but it didn't end up mattering. And then he fucking kicked it. Madeline Stowe looked at baby him with fuck me eyes, and then the movie ends.
Jeez.
And it's just like, what did I just watch? What was the purpose of all that? So, hence why
nothing
I don't
in
think
life matters, and then you die.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the moral of the story.
Is futility
the
message?
Not only you, but 5 billion other people die as well.
5 billion other people. So is futility the message? Like, eventually, creepy, dyed eyebrows David Morse is going to get you, and there's nothing you can do about it?
Man, I can't believe he didn't have one briefcase with the biological samples and another briefcase with a chopped up kid in it. Like, I don't. He was super creepy in this, but we should have seen it coming. You see,
and a Karate Kid headband that just said "bad guy" across his forehead. Like, seriously, I don't know what the purpose of the Lannister family golden locks and ponytail identifying him as the bad guy was. But
yeah, he didn't find his look until much later in life. He got handsome. He became like a soldier typecast kind of dude, big tough guy.
Yeah, when I was looking for things for 6 Degrees of Chill for next week, I remembered him in the Rock. And we could complete a lot of those. You guys want to face off without me. But we could do more Jerry Bruckheimer 90s action. So yeah, like I say, we both gave it 2.5 out of 5. And based on our review, our thoughts were about as manic as this movie was and disorganized and discombobulated. But 2.5 out of 5. And I think you would agree, Sean, probably just because it will make you have a conversation. Like, it is... There is some stuff on here to unpack and that is engaging. Mm-hmm. At no point was I looking at my watch saying I want to turn this off. I was often questioning what the purpose of this time was, but I wasn't waiting for it to end. So I guess that's a compliment in its favor.
Yeah, that's about as good as that's a weak compliment, but I agree.
Well, I'm looking forward to something possibly more awesome or funnier or better or more interesting next week, because between Blair Witch and this, I just had no fun watching movies. I'm so glad I watched Pitch Perfect on my phone as I was falling asleep like 9 times in 16 days. I got some lightness and levity from my movies in the last couple weeks. So with that said, we need to pick a 6 Degrees of Chill movie for next week, and I know you have a list somewhere of all the people who we have to thank for making contributions either on Twitter or mostly on our Facebook or different places for what we can watch that connects to 12 Monkeys.
Let us do it. I'm going to surprise you with a little something here, Gary. Hashtag 6DOC. I have an extra movie. Some people out there may have liked... I think this is maybe like a 50-50. I have to check on Rotten Tomatoes whether or not people like this movie or not. But I have a steelbook case of The Dark Knight. It's a Batman movie, in case you'd never heard of it. I have an extra one.
I love Bruce Batman. As Thane knows, Bruce Batman is my favorite fictional character in all of cinema.
This is not as good as the Adam West Batman, I don't think, but I have to go back and watch just to be certain. But I have an extra movie sitting around. I I feel generous, so I was just going to give it away. So let's get real here, people.
Ooh.
This is how you win. We're going to continue with the 6 Degrees of Chill game. And for now, like, if you share or retweet or whatever, you get double chances of your movie getting picked. But for next week, if you share and your movie gets picked, I will give you The Dark Knight Rises in a steelbook case. It's pretty sweet. I wish I had it next to me. I might actually somewhere. Nope, I don't.
That is a muy impresivo prize for our listeners. And I can only hope that the birthday boy, Corey Giltner, gets back in with his Howard the Duck suggestions and shares to get in on that contest. And our illustrious
That would be
co-host,
so magical.
It would, that he got picked
Howard
finally.
the Duck, and we give away a steelbook.
Our illustrious guest host, Thane, is back to making contributions, and we love him for it. He's a super fan. I'm sure he would love another, or maybe a first copy of a Bruce Batman classic like The Dark Knight.
Yeah, as if nobody has this
Corey
movie,
Hicks is back in this week. He's been with us the whole time. We love him.
I
Blair.
met him, by the way.
Oh, really? Fantastic.
I met him. I gave away another thing on another show that I do, but I gave away a copy of Metal Gear Solid 5, and I got to, actually it was right after the Blair Witch. So that was kind of neat.
Awesome.
I shook his hand, and I got all, like, nervous and
Oh.
okay, hi.
You sign autographs for him? Any merch?
I asked for his autograph, actually.
There
Actually,
you
I
go.
didn't. I should have. I just realized it now. Nuts.
Well, Blair's
So
back
what's up,
in
Corey?
this week. Matt Fode's back in this
What's up,
week.
Matt
John
Fode?
Bernardo. That looks like it for this week, but we've had so many people making contributions, and we have a nice big list of movies to watch this week. And now you have even more motivation. The prize isn't for whoever wins this week. Sean is giving you this week, this next Friday's episode to ready yourself.
Ready yourself, Chris and Jen and all the 5 other of you listening. Pretty good odds, I would say. All you got to do is share it. Just get the word out. Every time you guys do it, really, really helps. So why not give away? I'll just give away stuff. So we'll see. Maybe we'll do more of this too. But I don't know. We can run through do you have the list in front of you?
I do.
So there was a couple Unbreakable from John Bernardo and I think you actually wanted to see that one again. Corey with True Romance, Moonlighting from John Bernardo, Snatch, Matt Fode, classic.
Fantastic.
But ultimately there could only be one. And our ex-host, Thane Tingley, is the winner with one of my favorite Bruce Willis and time-traveling movies, Looper, is the movie of the week next week for 6 Degrees of Chill. So,
And I think I'm excited. Like, I think I can morning radio air horn that because I remember it being good, but I have to be honest, I haven't seen it since I saw it in the theaters the first time it came out. I'm excited. That is the purpose.
Well.
Is the purpose of this segment, so I am pumped. Let's do it. Bacardi Cola, Looper, next Friday's episode.
Bacardi Cola, do it.
So,
The
with that
end.
said, we need to partner it, not the end, we need to partner it with a new movie next week.
Oh, damn
And
it.
we have a very short list of new entries, and for me, that's very exciting. We're going from a genre that I generally, without blanket statement saying I hate all of them, I do not like horror movies, and without a blanket statement saying I love all of them, I very, very much love Westerns. And that's about the only exciting new thing coming out this week is the new reboot of The Magnificent Seven, starring Denzel Washington and Chris Pratt and Ethan Hawke and many others, directed by Antoine Fuqua. I'm fucking pumped. I love the original. I wish we could double Magnificent Seven this week and watch
that would be
the Yul
awesome.
Brynner, Steve McQueen,
Versus.
Charles Bronson version and watch this, but maybe we'll come around to the original. I think it's 1968 was the original Magnificent Seven. One of my favorite classic Westerns. I'm excited for the reboot. I'm sure they'll ruin it because reboots always do, but I'm looking forward to it anyway. Power of positive thinking. So next week's new movie, The Magnificent Seven, paired with next week's 6 Degrees of Chill movie, Looper. I think that's going to be a hell of an episode, and I'm pumped for it. How about you, Sean?
It's going to be the best show we did since this episode. I'm not pumped about Magnificent Seven, by the way.
No,
Fuck
not at all.
reboots.
What about Westerns? Are you a Western fan like I am?
I wouldn't say that I'm an aficionado.
Ooh.
We'll take that quadrosyllable.
Yeah, triple word score for aficionado.
Five
That's
syllables.
fantastic.
Derek Zoolander.
Yes. Absolutely. Well, I got to tell you, I had so much fun this week. I'm so
Oh,
happy
we're
to be
back.
back.
Aw.
I'm pumped to get back in the rhythm of this thing. I would like to thank everybody who listened while I was away. I hope that you're okay with me being back. Thane did a fantastic job, and I was worried I wasn't going to get my chair back. So I hope a bunch of you stuck with us. I'm sure Thane brought us some new fans with his youthful vitality and cat antics. It is the internet after all.
He brings
It
the
has to have
millennial
helped.
demo with him, which is kind
It
of
has
nice.
to have helped. It has to have helped.
Stick around,
So
by the way. I want to, just before we close things off, stick around after the show because Thane and Blair are launching their own podcast. We're just going to tack on to the end of this. It's called Nerdflix and Chill and Chill.
yes, exactly. Like Talking Dead, they're just going to dissect everything we went through this show. I'm preparing myself for heavy doses of judgment. I've never heard either of those people say kind things about me. I can't imagine it's going to go well for us, but they should have a great time. They're
I'm
two
not
great
kidding.
guys.
If you guys if you're listening, if any of you guys ever want to do a reactions, anything, just do a little voice memo on your phone and email it to me. I will 100% put it at the end of the show. That would be so funny.
I am down. That would be fantastic. So for stuff like that, we'd love for you to keep getting in contact with us. Sean mentioned the reviews on iTunes are great and helpful, and we would love them. If you can review us on iTunes, that'd be great. Get a hold of any of us. Sean is at Sean Capri on Twitter. Sean like the Connery, Capri like the pants, he likes to say. I'm at Gary T Movies. Like, no part of that is witty or original. It just is what it is. You can tweet the site at We The Nerdy. You can check out youtube.com/We The Nerdy for us and everything else that the site is putting up. And, of course, go to WeTheNerdy.com itself for oodles and bundles of... Oodles and bundles of new contents
Yeah.
all the time. Yeah. Danke, I said a lot on
so
this trip.
much nerd.
So much nerding
Yeah.
to do on the internet.
Yeah.
I had to struggle so hard not to speak to Germans in English with a German accent
But-
just because I find it hilarious. So when I would say danke and they would say bitte and I would say no problem, thank you very much.
And you chase them around. They're like, "Don't make me run! I'm full of chocolate."
Chocolate. Exactly. So, besides minor anti-German racism, stick with us next week for more movie reviews and fun and whatnot. And go to the site because we keep adding new content, and the site is doing fantastically well. We're getting new content creators, and it's just, I'm so proud to be associated with it whatsoever. And how about you? Do you have anything going up on the site this week, Sean?
I just would say that WeTheNerdy.com makes you a better person just for going there. Definitely makes me a better person for writing. Yes, I have a couple of things. What the heck have I been... I did a review for a video game called Recore. It's where you take these little balls out of dog robots and you put them into gorilla robots, and it's a lot of fun. So go ahead and read that. And I will soon have a review for a driving game called Forza Horizon 3. It is on the Xbox One and on the personal computer system. So that will be on WeTheNerdy.com. A whole bunch of nerdy video games that I get to play and then write about, and people read my words.
Pleasure. So, again, Kate, thank you guys so much for listening, and we can't wait to talk to you next week. And have fun, watch some movies, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, I love you.